Let's have a little heart-to-heart before we dive into the abyss today. I know most of you have spent late nights scrolling through documentaries about Area 51. You've seen the grainy footage of silver discs over Nevada, and you've heard the whistleblowers talk about little green men. Look, I'm not here to knock the classics, but while the West has been staring at the sky waiting for a mothership, the East has been staring into a hole in the ground that stares back. It's ironic, really. The world is waiting for a declassified memo from the Oval Office to tell them the truth about the universe. But as someone who spent way too much time digging through the restricted gray files of the Orient, I can tell you, when the US was playing with flying saucers, China was accidentally touching the source code of reality itself. Today, we are heading into the heart of the most guarded exclusion zone on the planet. Lop Nur. It's not just a desert. It's a graveyard for the laws of physics. It's a place where the past, the present, and the dead don't just coexist, they collide. Before we talk about the Double Fish Pendant, the artifact that broke a nation's top scientists, I need you to do me a favor. Make sure you aren't alone while listening to this. Or at the very least, make sure the person in the mirror behind you is actually you. If you open Google Earth right now and center your coordinates on the southeastern part of Xinjiang, China, you'll see something that'll trigger your megalophobia. Deep in the mustard yellow wasteland, there's a shriveled, massive human ear embedded in the crust of the planet. This is Lop Nur. It covers about 3,000 square kilometers. It used to be China's second largest saltwater lake, but now it's a dried-out husk of salt, radiation, and silence. Most people think Lop Nur dried up because of climate change. But according to leaked geological reports from the 70s, the lake didn't just dry up. It vanished almost overnight following a series of underground nuclear tests. It wasn't just a loss of water. It was a collapse of the local space-time fabric. Why call it the ear of the Earth? Geologists claim the ear shape is just a result of salt crust shrinking in concentric circles. But let me give you the Bureau 749 perspective. In their unofficial logs, Lop Nur is described as a giant passive acoustic resonator. Think about that. This entire region is essentially a giant satellite dish tuned to a frequency we don't understand. It's listening. This is why the military built their nuclear test sites and missile silos exactly there. Not just because it's empty, but because a nuclear detonation is the only thing loud enough to ping whatever is sleeping underneath that salt. Take a second. If there really is an ear the size of a city buried in the earth, what do you think it's listening for? The stars? Or the breathing coming from the mantle? Let's talk about the man who walked into the ear and never came out. His name was Peng Jiamo. In the history books, he's a hero, a brilliant biochemist. In our archives, he's the guy who stepped into a null zone. By May 1980, Peng was leading his third expedition into Lop Nur. Here is a detail the official records like to gloss over. Peng Jiamo was already dying. He had been diagnosed with 2 types of cancer. Now, ask yourself, why would a terminal, elderly scientist insist on trekking into a 140-degree radioactive hellscape? He wasn't looking for minerals. He was looking for a signal. On June 17th, the team's supplies hit rock bottom. Peng was agitated, not because of the thirst, but like he was being called. At 10:30 a.m., he left a note that is still tucked away in a high-security vault today. It said, "I'm going east to find water." Peng. June 17th, 10:30. He walked into the horizon, and the universe simply closed the door behind him. The search that followed was biblical. We're talking over a dozen aircraft, thousands of soldiers, elite K-9 units, and the best infrared tech the 1980s had to offer. They literally sifted through the sand for miles. They didn't find a footprint, not a scrap of cloth, Not a single drop of DNA. On a flat, featureless plain, a slow-moving old man vanished within a couple of hours from an aerial search grid. It's physically impossible. Unless he didn't walk east, he walked behind the curtain. The government spent hundreds of thousands of yuan on that search. In 1980, the average monthly salary in China was about 40 yuan. They weren't just looking for a scientist. They were looking for the key he had accidentally taken with him. Now we get to the core of the nightmare. During the search for Peng Jiamu, the recovery teams reportedly stumbled upon an underground facility. Let's call it Site L. Inside, they found a device. This is the infamous Double Fish Pendant. Now, don't let the name fool you. It's not jewelry. It's the user interface for a reality-altering machine. The lab logs describe an experiment that sounds like something out of a David Cronenberg movie. Researchers placed a live goldfish within the energy field of the pendant. Suddenly, with no warning, a second goldfish appeared in the tank. Imagine the silence in that room. It wasn't a magic trick. It wasn't a clone. Both fish were biologically identical. Every microscopic scratch on their scales was mirrored perfectly. To test if this was just an optical illusion, the scientists painted a tiny red dot on the back of the first fish. Instantly, the second fish developed the exact same red mark. But here is the horror part. When the scientists killed the first fish, the second one kept swimming for exactly 7 hours. Then it dropped dead in the exact same way. This wasn't just copy-pasting matter. It was temporal mirroring. The device was folding space-time to create a delayed echo of a living being. Now, do the math with me. What if Peng Jiamu, delirious from the heat, accidentally triggered this device? What if the search party didn't find zero Peng Jiamu? What if they found two identical, high-level scientists carrying national secrets? What do you do with the spare? If you were the government, would you allow a duplicate of a human being to exist? Lop Nur's horror isn't just about space-time. It's about biological residue. In the scrolls of Bureau 749, there are accounts from the 1950s of something called the Sand People. These weren't nomads. These were entities that looked human but moved with a mechanical, jerky gait. They didn't feel pain. They didn't need water. You could pump them full of lead, and they just keep charging. One of Peng Jiamu's actual research topics was the mutation of desert flora. There's a hypothesis that Lop Nur holds a prehistoric virus, something from a previous cycle of civilization, that rewrites DNA. These sand people weren't monsters from another planet. They were explorers who had been mirrored by the double fish or infected by this ancient pathogen. Their souls were stuck in a previous dimension, while their bodies remained here as empty, aggressive shells. This is why Lop Nur is still a restricted zone. They aren't trying to keep people out. They're trying to keep something in. So, where's Peng Jiamu today? I once heard a story from a retired researcher, a guy who had seen too much and drank too much to forget. He mentioned a place called the P Room. Deep inside the reinforced bunkers of Bureau 749, there is a specialized isolation cell. They say an old man lives there who is never, ever allowed to see a mirror. Every 7 hours, a team of medical experts has to check his vitals with extreme precision. Because if his state collapses, the theory is that the reality of the incident in 1980 will collapse along with him. Lop Nur isn't Area 51. Area 51 is a hangar for visitors. Lop Nur is the system backup room for our reality. And everyone who has gone missing there, they've just become part of the backup files. Is this the whole truth? Probably not. It's just the part they couldn't burn. I'm the Crimson-Eyed Panda. Thanks for trekking through the sea of death with me today. Before I let you go, I want you to do one thing. Turn off your screen right now. As it goes black, look at your own reflection in the glass. Does it feel like the you in the reflection blinked just a millisecond earlier than you did? If you feel like you're being watched, you probably are. Stay grounded. Stay curious. And if you ever find yourself in the desert and stumble upon a piece of jade, keep walking. Don't look back. Don't even think about it.